It looks like the stream was deleted on Facebook. What's wrong with it? Okay. Hello. Good evening. We apologize for the delay. I think we are late about 30 minutes due to some technical errors we have no control over. We really apologize. Today we are hosting a special version, and we also apologize. I think we are having a little problem with the stream live on Facebook. We'll try to sort it out before the end of the for the end of the podcast. So I'm trying to get it back. Really sorry about the technical errors we're expressing. Yes, we are back online on Facebook. Okay, hello, good evening, listeners and followers from all over the world. Today, in our special version of the Story of a Researcher, the podcast, we are hosting a special distinguished guest from a unique background and unique field. You all know that I am from the scientific background, and today we are digressing a little bit into the law. So I will be as lay as anyone, as the people of the law used to say, learned colleague. So I'm not learned. I'm also illiterate here, so I'm gonna learn a lot. And I hope we will enjoy this talk for the next 1 hour and we have time for questions. So as usual, this is the story of the researcher, the podcast where we highlight the life of some remarkable scientists and researchers from Nigeria to display their own their own professionalism, the path in which they achieve progress, the path in which they have achieved greatness, so that the younger ones can learn from them, so that the society can learn about the strives and how those people are working day and night to be problem solvers in our society. Researchers are the backbone of any society, and any society that takes progress serious will have regard to its researchers. Today, we host Professor Hadiza Hamma, who is professor of environmental and development law. She also doubles as the director of security studies from the University of Abuja. Among her peculiarity is that she has had her mark at the prestigious Harvard University and lots more. Today we will listen into her thrilling story and we will hope to learn. And as usual, we will carry this program in segments. The first segment will be discussing about the origins and her academic journey, then her career and achievement, then her insight into law policy in Africa's development. Then we'll discuss a little bit into the global influence and have Harvard connection and how it will benefit us here in Nigeria. There is always challenges, and it's important that we discuss the challenges, future outlooks, because it's important when you have speakers of such caliber to hear their insights. It's 20 years of wisdom that will be impacted in an hour or less. So at the end, we will entertain live questions from the audience, and the speaker will be able to answer them. Thank you for joining us, Professor.
Thank you very much, Zaid. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with everyone. Good to be with you today.
Thank you. So my first question will be very simple. Sorry, apologies for the network glitch. I think we are back online now. So let me repeat my
Okay,
question.
yeah.
What inspired you? Yeah, it's like problem with network, and I don't know what's happening these days.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you get my first question. What inspired you to study law?
Oh, okay. I'm just getting it now. Well,
Okay.
so once again, thank you for having me, everyone. I studied law because I was inspired by um, two different stories. I like to tell stories, so maybe I can start with stories. The first one is a story I have heard a long time ago when I was a child growing up. We had an elderly aunt, a relative who told me a story about how her first marriage, and then how she became divorced and then went into a second marriage. And then the story she told me was this: she was married off at a very young age, and then in those days there was really no need for any consent to be sought or anything. Well, she went, stayed with the husband, and I think after a year or two, she felt she could no longer, continue to stay with the man. She was very young. She doesn't know what to do. She can't go and approach her parents. And so she went to another elderly, relative, narrated her ordeal, and the relative advised her to go and, report the matter to the judge, of the area, one of the traditional alcalis of those times. And she did. She went and she complained to him. He said, "Well, this is a matter of law. I cannot listen to you at home. Come and report at the court on Monday, and then we can hear your matter at the court." So she went to the court. She sneaked out of her husband's house, on Monday morning, went to the court, and he asked her to narrate her ordeal, to narrate what's her grievance before the court. She did. And in that young age, she was, shivering and shaking, but she managed to tell the judge what was wrong. And the judge summoned her husband, I think later, and then her father, and that was how the judge was able to, free her from, because that's where she saw it, to free her from that marriage that she felt she was in bondage. And so that was my first encounter with the story of how law can be used to change the circumstances of people, to to get justice to be done for people who felt their the society or family has been unjust to them. And I was really intrigued by that. So that was the first part. I was very young, but I still remember the story. I was in primary school then. So by the time I was in secondary school, that's the second story. We were
Yeah.
in JSS, yes, in our third year in JS3. The school, my school, Nigerian Navy Secondary School in Lagos, I still remember, those wonderful times there. So they organized a career talk day for us, where they invited specialists from different professions to come to talk to us about your career alternatives, and what will interest you, and then tell us about their profession, what they do, how it impacts individuals and things like that. And then I listened to the doctor, I listened to the engineer, I listened to the nurse, I listened to different professionals. But it was when when the lawyer stood up to speak that I became really. I found myself in a trance. I was hypnotized by the lawyer, not only because of his eloquence. Lawyers are very eloquent. I don't want to blow a trumpet, but he was not only eloquent, but he was also talking about how law can be used as an instrument of social change, how law can be used and as instrument of achieving
Mhm.
justice for different groups of individuals, and so many good things he said about law, and what it takes to study law. And especially when he mentioned some of the subjects that you need to be very good at to be, to go and study law at the university. It was one of my best, like literature and English. Then I used to I even took the prize for literature and English in my secondary school. So all those things, inspired me. And I felt, well, I think what I need, what I want to study when I grow up is law. So there and then I made the decision to join the art class rather than the like the science class, in when I entered SS1. So that's the story about why I decided to study law. Those two stories, actually. Have I lost you again?
Really sorry about the network problem. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, Zaid, I can hear you now. I don't know who I lost you for a while.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's problem of the network. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, but I'm kind of
Mm.
following up on the story you're giving us in the secondary school and the eloquency of lawyers. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm at the part where you're talking about the eloquency of lawyers and you get
Oh.
hypnotized
uh,
by
No, I said
the.
a lot about how law can be used as an instrument of social change, and how law can be used to
Yeah.
turn around the destinies of people. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's just beyond the eloquence. Actually, it was beyond the eloquence. Mm.
But you kind of like measure specifically on the environmental and developmental law, which
Mm.
is something is unheard of. Like people that are not particularly interested in the law will find that new. I am one of them.
Mm.
Why environmental
Mm.
and developmental law? Because we all know about civil law, we know Sharia law, we have a lot of laws.
Mm.
This particular field
Mm.
of kind of expertise.
Yeah. Well, for me, environmental law seems to be the connection between people and their and social progress. So you see, I have seen a lot of damages caused by environmental degradation, um, in different parts of Nigeria. For us in the north, especially from the northeast where I am, I think desertification is one of the greatest problems we have. And then I have
Mm.
come to understand that there's a very great, there's a very clear and not sometimes not too clear, but there's this link, you know, this link between environment and human progress. Like I see environment as one of the factors that determine the well-being of people. For example, there's a lot you can identify about the environment that promotes poverty. And then there's a lot about poverty that affects the environment. So the example I love to give, is in a place in rural areas where a majority of the population is poor. These are the populations who go in to cut down trees, use them for firewood, right? So
Yeah.
the environment is affected. And then those people who keep using the firewood are the ones, usually women and children around them, are the ones who end up with a lot of health hazards like respiratory tract infections, for example,
Mm.
like um, eye problems. So I feel like that problem, that kind of connection between the environment and human progress exists. And I felt law should be, an instrument, or should be a means by which we can regulate these problems, and reduce the burden of poverty and other, related social strife in the communities. So that's one of the reasons why I
That's
picked interest in
that's
environmental law.
It's really interesting, and I'm curious about you talking about because in this little space of minutes you took to answer this question, you have made mention of the interconnection of the environmental law with health, also with the economy, poverty, which is, I think, they are the two key most important ingredients in our lives. Depends on,
If you
especially at this.
permit me, I want to add one more. If you let's look
Yeah,
at what is happening with regards to insecurity.
exactly.
Insecurity,
Right?
farmers, herders, classes. It has to do with the environment, you know, because herders will always look for greener pasture that is increasingly being depleted because of issues related to climate change and so on and so forth. And so they have to move out, go look for where to graze their cattle. where they can find, arable land for grazing cattle. And, in that process, they go into, you know, communities where farming is the mainstay of the economy. And then those conflicts, as we know them, they keep happening. I think environmental factors are at the root of a lot of conflicts we have in many parts of the country, and indeed in several parts of Africa. Even in the Niger Delta, with all the things that have been happening, you can always identify environmental degradation, um, you know, in as one of the major factors contributing to um, insecurity and social conflict in the society.
So you as a lawyer or a professor of law in the environment, and you talk about health, you talk about insecurity, you talk about poverty. How do you
Mm.
play a role in kind of alleviating, like, do people, because when you talk of law, what we think as the lay people is like there is a dispute and people will report to you and you go to the court and you defend the person. So in this regard, how do you play a role in the poverty and security and health?
You know, everything in society has it as its foundation some rules regulating code of conduct or regulating behavior or regulating how systems function. So so law is always at the root. I want to differ from Karl Marx, who said that the what is at the foundation of everything is the economy, like economic infrastructure determines the superstructures of politics. I differ from Karl Marx. Law is at the foundation. So everything society, functions within the framework of law, of knowing, of policies and laws of, regulating how things should be done at any particular time. So in terms of environment, when you have laws, that address issues relating to environmental degradation, you can have laws that will control the extent to which you can deplete natural resources, or the method by which you can utilize land. So if these laws are followed, the degradation would be controlled, pollution would be abated. And so if that happens, all the other consequences that arise from, environmental pollution, socioeconomic conditions, and so on and so forth would not be, they will not be avoided. That is the role of law. In all this, law helps to promote, well-being by providing, framework within which people, can operate and interact with the natural environment in which they live. And then law
Yeah,
can also be used to control things like the extractive industries, like, let me say, entities like extractive industries that are the major players in environmental degradation in Africa, not only in Nigeria. So if you have laws controlling their behavior and how they should, utilize or exploit natural resources, I think to a great extent we will not be where we are today.
exactly. I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you look into the developed nations and
Mhm.
us, I think what we will say is like our ability to follow the law differ, and that determines our progress.
Yes, exactly. So if
Yes.
I
So
can give
first,
you an example with, say, for example, one law, the Environmental Impact Assessment Act, for example, that's one law on environmental protection. And the law is simple. Whenever you want to venture into any activity that would, affect the environment, carry out an assessment to determine the probable consequences of that action on the environment, of that activity on the environment, and then go ahead and find and also spell out how you are going to mitigate those negative consequences. So if only that is followed, for example, I mean, the environment will be better off for it.
exactly, we
I
need a
don't
lot
want to
of
go into law
awareness.
too much. So
Yeah,
I just a simple example of, how law
I
can
know.
help.
Yeah, we need a lot of awareness, especially with regard to the laws governing our environment, because the environment is key
Yeah,
to
yeah,
everything.
it is.
Yes. So
Mhm.
fast forward, you kind of had your first degree, second degree, and I think probably the third in Nigeria. Then you, at some point in your life, moved to the States, and even in the state you attended Harvard, where you made remarkable achievements that we're all proud of.
Mm.
What we are really looking at is, what can you tell us about the experience before and after you attended Harvard in terms of your
Before
perspective?
Harvard, okay, before Harvard, as you said, I had all my education in Nigeria, of course, starting from, well, different parts of Nigeria, but mostly in Lagos. And then I came to university in Abuja and, went into other things like working for government in the ministry and then the university. So in all this, my experience is more in the academic sphere because that's where I spent the large portion of my career at. So before then, I had this narrow view of how to be a teacher or how to study. Those are things that they were very narrow. I don't want to, very narrow in the sense that I think, the traditional ways, mostly you go teach the class. If they have a question, they ask and you walk out and that's it. You go read whatever, you have to read and that's it. So, and then I also had this impression that once you have chosen a course that you're going to study, then you should pay attention to that course and study only that course and nothing else. In fact, that was one of the greatest myths that I had busted when I went over there. So by the time I went to Harvard, I learned something new. First of all, I learned that it is the student who is at the center of the teaching process. Um, by that, by student-centered study, I mean it is a process where the students participate so much in the learning process, in the teaching. I'm not just learning, I mean teaching itself. The student participates so much that you come into class and begin to wonder who is this professor and who is the student, because everybody has a role to play. Every day there's something you have to participate in. So you have no choice but to be a part of the learning process yourself. Again, I learned that even if you're, specializing or majoring in a particular aspect of a study or knowledge area, you have to broaden your horizon beyond that and be able to interact with other areas of knowledge. For example, as a lawyer, I have learned after my study at Harvard that I have to be able to interact very well and relate with economists, with scientists, with health professionals. That is something I learned, in after my study at Harvard, that you cannot just narrow your scope to just one thing and one thing. That as you're doing that, of course, do not lose sight of what you're after, but always make sure to look life left, right, and center and be able to, learn more than just what you went out, what you're specializing in. That's a major thing I learned from Harvard.
Well, that's really interesting because you just and that is exactly why this platform is set to be able to harness years of experience of those that have walked the path, so that those coming
Yes.
up kind of rectify the mistake, and altogether we can be a better society. So we are done with
Mm.
this section one of the podcast. And as usual, if you have any comments or question, you can type it in the comment section. Either you are watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also these videos are available on demand anytime at your own convenience. So moving into your career and achievement, you've worked in the government and academia, which is totally, they can be parallel, sometimes they interdigitate, especially in a nation like Nigeria. Which role
Mm.
shaped you the most?
Well, I would say that they both have, their influence in how what I have, turned out to be, both government and academia. But I think if I have to vote, I'll vote in favor of academia because the things I've been able to achieve in academia, I wasn't able to achieve those in government. I was, a state council for just a while, very short while. And then I moved into academia where I've stayed for over a decade, you know. So that over a decade long experience has shaped me into something I would never have dreamt of. Now I can, in government, I'm looking at things from policy making, how to, I was in the, for example, at a point in the legal drafting department. So we draft laws. The government sends us draft bills that they want us to amend and things like that. So policy orientation, very good, very wonderful. And then when I came to academia, I learned to see um, laws beyond just statute books, but how do they operate in practice? How do they impact the people? What are the weaknesses in every law? What are the strengths? What needs to be adjusted? These are things I learned in the academia because I was doing research and teaching. And so those are things I could not have learned while I was in government. But more important to me is the fact that I got an opportunity, alhamdulillah, to shape future generation of lawyers. I think that is one of the most, in endearing pieces of my history that I love to think about. How I have contributed to knowledge, how I have, mentored, hundreds or I don't know, thousands or so of students, from undergraduate to postgraduate students, and I still do. And there's always that fulfillment, in mentoring others, in teaching others, and then in contributing to knowledge, whether it is through writing, research, or teaching, or any other way. So I think academia shaped me the most,
I
when
think that
compared
is
to
really
government.
interesting. Yeah, you made mention of you find the research in academia and you're able to, the government is just editing policy. How do you see the link between researchers in the field of law and those making the policy in Nigerian setting? Do you think that is a crosstalk, or like each exists on an individual entity?
Yes, I think they are related and they are ideally supposed to be partners, working together. But the way things are going, and with a lot of, laws that I have come across and, the works that I've written on various laws, you can see that there's some kind of disconnect between policymakers and what the law, really is from the angle of researchers. Researchers go beyond just looking at the provisions of the law, implementing them. They interrogate, they critique, the contents or provisions in laws. So they have like an all-round understanding of the influence of law in reality. Like they have this touch with reality or with law in reality in the real world. Yes, that's what I mean. So I feel that if only there was this connection, proper connection between lawmakers or policymakers and those who do the research, a lot of the loopholes that we have in so many laws would have been avoided. So I think it's something we really need to, amplify more so that maybe probably lawmakers
I
will work
hope
more with research than they do now.
the policy workers will be able to listen to this, and we actually need that, because not even in law, in all the fields of endeavor, if you see, practically in Nigeria,
Mm,
we have that kind of problem when it comes to researchers and those making the policy, because the
mm,
researchers are in touch with the reality of what is happening, what
yes.
is going to show
Mhm,
humanity, what people respond to. So we really needed that. I will
mm.
just probably, this is something, a question I will reserve it for later, not now. And
Okay.
you have created a new course on developmental law, is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, yes, it's correct. International Development Law and Policy. That's the
Yeah.
full
So
title of the course.
what is the story behind that?
Well, well, the story behind that is based on, first of all, my understanding, from the beginning about environmental problems and social issues. And then I went to Harvard and I studied. My degree at Harvard, is not a law degree. People keep wondering if I went to study law at Harvard. I did not study law at Harvard. I studied, the course is Master of Liberal Arts in Development Practice. It is now called Master of Liberal Arts in Global Development Practice. So that is what the course is about. So the Global Development Practice Masters at Harvard is a course that's meant to train people who are going to be sustainable development practitioners, people who will be able to provide solutions to social problems from interdisciplinary perspectives, from different angles. So by the time you do that, you end up having, um okay, the course is divided into three main components. I need to explain this. There's the core curriculum, there's the global classroom, and then there is the field training. So in all this, you're supposed to look at societal problems from the angle of natural sciences, management sciences, social sciences, health sciences, and political, and so on and so forth. Yeah, political fall under social. So after you have learned the courses, then you now attend the global classroom every week. And the global classroom brings together students from universities all over the world in one classroom, a virtual classroom. And you listen to world leaders that you never have thought you have access to come to talk to you about global problems and global solutions. Different professionals. Some of them are economists. Like if you're an economist, you must definitely know Professor Jeffrey Sachs. So he's the one in you know
Everyone knows
in yes, he's the one who is even in charge of that course called Global Classroom. And then they talk to you. Some of them are presidents in some countries, some of them, different people, and then you can ask them questions and they will talk to you back and answer you. So you experience that. When you're all done with all that, you go and do the field training where you identify particular real world problem, existing problem, and then you apply all your knowledge to solving that problem. So by the time I was through with that course and I came back to Nigeria, and I felt there is a gap. And then now I have to also think about my background in law. How can my background in law and what I've learned at Harvard come together to provide a knowledge area that will be able to provide that kind of system, or that kind of platform where professionals can contribute to solving real life challenges? And then so I thought about it and I realized that in our university, at least at the University of Abuja, that has existed for over maybe 30 decades now. The University of Abuja is 30 something years, I think. We've never had a course in development law. And then I looked around several other universities around us. There were no courses in development law. And I felt, no, that is a big lacuna. I know it's a big gap. We have to fill it up. And so I sat down, racked my brain, came up with a curriculum for development within the context of law. You understand? So that I can bring in that development, issue, and then marry it with law, so that law can be, the platform or the medium through which development can be achieved. And so I coined that course, drafted the curriculum, wrote a proposal, submitted to the university. It went through the various, approval processes, and that finally I got to launch it because I felt like Africa, yes, the point I'm making is that there's a curriculum gap in that area because for us as Africans, the developmental challenges we face are too numerous, to be itemized. And then we are not doing courses on development. Why are we called developing countries? And they are called developed countries. So which means development is an issue. So why are we not having courses in law, for that matter? Law that is at the foundation of everything, like I said. In development, yes, I stick to that. That law is at the foundation. There's nothing you can do, you scientists. Okay,
Agreed.
so that's the motivation. So I felt like environment and development are two sides of human existence. Yes, that's
That's
that's the way
really-
it is.
that's a remarkable feat considering how kind of things move slow in the Nigerian system. So this is
Mhm.
very important. From the launch of this course on the developmental law, which you did in the University of Abuja, what
Mm.
achievement have you kind of attained through this new course? Because it seems it's invaluable. We desperately need it, especially in developing
Mhm.
countries. What
Yes, we do
achievement
it.
and accomplishments did you have you
Yes,
achieved through that?
Aha. So one of the things that I can say is that I've had students. This is I think the fifth year I'm teaching the course. Is it fifth? Or yeah, should be fifth year. So in these 5 years, I've had students who have expressed you know, their 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 happiness or their excitement about taking a course like that, and how it has become an eye opener to various areas of law, because development law is that law that will bring in different knowledge areas, like I said, because development is an interdisciplinary issue. So even if you're looking at law, you have to look at all those other issues that relate to development. So they are now being able to bring these things together. And to make this point, to help you understand how it has impacted the students, I now have a lot of students who have decided to do not only their master's dissertation, but their PhD thesis on development law. So the first student I graduated excuse me, I need to take that off.
Yes.
Yes. So the first student I supervised, and graduated as a PhD was actually a student who wrote on development law. She wrote on infrastructural development in Nigeria within the context of sustainability. And then I have other ones who are writing on the right to development. On another person is writing on women and in Africa in the context of development. I have another one who is writing on health policy in Africa within the context of development. So this shows you that the students are, have keyed in, and they see this as a pathway to their careers as legal professionals.
Indeed, indeed. Did you attain any accomplishment in terms of other universities across Nigeria, or probably in Africa, to be able to adopt your system of introducing developmental law into their curriculum?
Yes, for now, I know that a few universities around Abuja here, have now launched development law courses. But I'm not sure how many outside Abuja have done that. So, but because I haven't taken the pain to research how many universities have done that, but I know that in Abuja, one or two universities, I don't have to mention their names, have also launched the course development law.
That's great. Congratulations, Prof. So
Thank you very
we're
much.
switching gears now to your global influence and also the connection with international bodies, especially you start in the room with Jeffrey Sachs, with presidents, a lot of wisdom there. And you also sit on the Harvard's advisory board. What does that mean
Yeah.
for the law in Nigeria or in Africa?
Okay. I like you said, rightly said, I'm a member of the um, Global Development Practice Program. So I'm a member of the advisory board of the Global Development Practice Program at Harvard. So it's not the entire Harvard board; it is the program, Global Development Practice Program. And I came to join because the each program has a director. That's how they do it. Each program has a director, and the director decided he needed an advisory board, to help him put heads together to take decisions on future direction of the program. And so he gathered leaders in the field, in various fields, professors, academicians, policymakers in the United States and other parts of the world, to join him on the board. And then he came after I had graduated. That's the point I want to make. While I was a student, he wasn't not the director. It was a different director. So by the time he came and he became the new director, and he was, asking around, who are the people I need to know, for the purpose of this program, somebody pointed him to me and said she's not only the first graduate of the program, because I was the first to earn that degree at Harvard, the entire Harvard. So so he said she's not only the first graduate of the program, but she's also done some work on this on the kind of the program. So what happened is that, to take us a little into history, while I was doing the program, I was also writing, something on development and education and, whatnot. And at the end of the day, two of my professors became interested in my writing, and they decided they wanted to be a part of it. So I was doing the writing, and they decided to be co-authors. So, to help me look through and see if there's anything. And at the end of the day, it was accepted by, Columbia University in one of their Sustainable Development International Conference on Sustainable Development, and I was the presenter on behalf of our, all of us. So that paper was there somewhere online, and then he was told about me. He decided to look me up online, and then he saw the paper, and he opened the paper, and he saw that I have written so much about the program and about global development and what it can do. And he felt no, he needed that kind of person on the board. So he called me, sent me an email that he needs us to have a meeting, and if I could please, take time out to be a member of the board so that we can always meet and discuss issues related to the program. So that's how I became a member of the board. So I needed to say this story so that you understand the nature of what we do at on the Global Development Program Advisory Board. So we sit together with, other leaders who have vast experience, more than I do, more experienced, older, everything, have more achievements than I do. And then they will sit down together and look at the programs and then advise the director and, the Harvard faculty on how to proceed. So that experience has helped me to understand that for us as Africans, we underrate ourselves so much because there's a lot we have to offer to the world. That's one thing I want to say, because look at me sitting here in Africa and then contributing to a program at Harvard in the United States. You know, that shows that all we need, as Africans, is to believe in what we are doing, stay focused to what we're doing, and we can go and and contribute to everything else around the world, and then learn from that experience, because you're talking to other leaders and seeing how things are done, and then you can bring that experience and implement it in Africa. And the sky will be our limit if we did that.
Exactly. It's really interesting hearing your story, especially when it is such fascinating and thrilling like this one. And it
Yeah.
seems from your conversation like the whole idea of environmental law is new to the world. It's not even something that
Mm.
has been there forever. Um, do you have any kind of a movement to see that we have um, that will bring policymakers? Like you said, you start in the room where you have president and the policymakers, Jeffrey Sachs, big shots. Do you want? How do you have you made any effort in order to replicate that kind of setting in your class of environmental law in Nigeria? Probably bring in the senators or like some big shots in the government and law and policy to see how to establish the connection.
Yes, it's some of the things we do. We invite people at different times to come to talk, our students, both undergraduate students and even the postgraduate students, about different issues, affecting us. And we have plans to, make it more systematic, not like we do it now, it's just random, once in a while we call somebody, come talk to students, and then you go. We want to create a kind of structure where it would be like part of the course itself, and then students can come, from all over to benefit from these experiences, or from this, great world think tanks. But there's something else we do already, in collaboration with our colleagues at Bayero University, Kano, where we have the Sustainable Development Ambassadors Program. So in that program, what we do is we invite students from, various universities across Nigeria, and then they come together for some workshops for a day, 4 days. And in this workshop, there are different aspects. There are aspects where they are giving lectures about development, about sustainability, and then at the other part, we take them around to different places, like the field components, to see how they can contribute in their own. Like we can take them to factories where some things are made, or to some ports to see how things are shipped in and taken. So there are so many things that we introduce these students to. And at the end of the day, we give them a kind of project to carry out that could take them months, and they're implementing at stages. And we are monitoring, how they progress and the impact they are making in their communities. So we are doing that for now, and we still hope to do. We are not doing
Yeah,
enough, but we still do more. Yes.
yeah. That's really really remarkable. And this is one kind of I've been thinking of this because whatever we do, especially in here in Science Communication Hub, what we is
Mm,
like the impact on the society. And
mm,
one thing that is obvious in the Nigerian setting is the people don't understand the law and how the law protects them and how
Mm,
important it is. Like you said, like law is the foundation of everything, which is really, really,
mm,
yeah. Without law, we just be like animals. So we needed the
mm,
law. From the level of environmental law, from the level of like law on its own, like you as a practical lawyer or like something like that, you've been there in the profession for a lot of years. Um, do
mm.
you have any awareness program in which you reach out to the society, communities on understanding, particularly your field on the environmental law, or is something you're thinking about in the near future?
Yes, it's some. I don't have a like a personal program, but like I said, we have this program that I told talked to you about, the Sustainability Ambassadors Program, and then at the university, through the University of Abuja Law Clinic, we have a lot of advocacy programs where students go out to talk to people about their rights. They talk to market women. They go to schools and discuss with the students, primary schools, secondary schools, about what you can do, to protect the environment, to protect your own rights as a human being, and so many other initiatives of that nature. And they happen, within the framework of the university or the Faculty of Law Clinical Legal Education Program. So we have those ones happening for now.
Yeah. Well, as
We
the
will work.
ambassador, yeah, as the global ambassador of environmental law, we'll hope that we'll
Yeah.
see a lot of advocacy from you, especially in the
Mm,
northeastern part of Nigeria where you have a lot of climate change and desert encroachment. Yeah,
mm,
people need that awareness. We display need that, and we have you in our own backyard. So we will love to see a lot from you. So
yeah.
moving, shifting gears, yeah.
Mm,
Just a reminder to our own viewers that have stick with us so far and have sent a lot of comments. Thank you very much. Yeah, keep sending your questions, comments, everything on the chat box, either on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and we'll be able to answer it. Moving
mm,
into an important segment is area of challenge. We have been discussing all the icing of the cake, the kind of the fruit, the juice of the hard work. What challenges have you faced, especially you being a woman with kind of leadership position and coming from northern part of Nigeria? It must be daunting and challenging. What is the story behind the challenge, and what if we have some female listening to us? How will they navigate it properly and ethically?
yes. Challenges. I think it's a fact of life. It's a part of life. You cannot avoid challenges. But for somebody like me, my career, lawyer, academician, and all that, there are so many challenges. Let me start with one that is always recurring. A recurring challenge for me as as a teacher is each time the semester ends and I'm marking the scripts and I'm grading students. I find it so, you know, disturbing that I have to fail some students. It's one of the it doesn't seem like it's anything because it happens all the time. But for me, it's a termly or semester issue. Every semester I sit down and I have to fail students. Not only because I feel sorry that I feel that students are failing, but because it makes me to question myself. I ask myself, did I teach enough? Was I, did I do what is required of me as a teacher? Did I give them all the materials they needed? Did I attend enough classes with them? Did I give them the opportunity to participate, to understand enough? So, this moment make me to sometimes doubt if I was doing the right thing with my students, even though I know I have tried my best. But each time a student has to fail, I looked at that. I wish they don't have to. And then sometimes it disturbs me because I feel it is not really a way to tell with perfection that that is what the student deserves. Examinations are not the only ways to know if students you know have passed or they have failed. Sometimes a student who has read well enough, who has understood, may come that day to the exam hall, and something has gone off or something has gone wrong before he came to the exam hall and he fails. And I have no way of knowing that. I have no way of assisting or changing anything like that. So that's something I think is an ongoing challenge for me as a teacher. Then again, as the woman that I am, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, and everything in between, that trying to balance competing demands in my life has been one of the things that I think, you know, led me to wonder sometimes if I should have even, decided to be a career person at all, if I should just, stay at home. And because it's difficult to balance these things, the reason is that I feel that each aspect of my life deserves, my attention, and it's equally important. So I cannot, abandon one for the other. But many times I find myself having to choose one above the other, or one, before the other. And that's a great challenge for me. Again, one challenge that I really don't like talking about, but I think I can just say it, that I've always had people who have supported me, wonderful people, parents, siblings, friends, sisters, husband, everybody they've always supported me. And I think I cannot tell my story without talking about these people. But and mentors, of course. But there was a critical time in my life that the people, some people who matter to me felt I maybe I was too I was too ambitious. Maybe I was over ambitious. I was I needed to be stopped or something, and then I had to find a way, to take a very difficult decision, and well, the rest is history. But those
Yeah.
kind of times, I remember them all the time, and well, all is well and good. Like I said, the people around me have always been, very wonderful, amazing people, including my mentors, at the university, who have always supported me. I have a network of sisters, friends who are now sisters, in addition to my family, like I mentioned. And I think I'm okay. I'm good.
I think, yeah. So yes, definitely. One of the things that is lacking here in the Nigerian context is mentorship, and that is what platforms like this tend to address. How do we enhance the mentor-mentee relationship?
Mm,
Because often, even at postgraduate levels, you see students disconnected and they don't know where they are heading to. They don't know how to follow their mentors. They don't know how to look for mentors, and they don't know how to learn from the experience of the mentors over the years. And especially
mm,
growing up as a woman, and you have a lot of responsibility to shoulder as a mother, you must have
mm,
faced a lot of challenges managing those kind of roles, and of course,
mm.
you're also a professional career. What
Yeah.
lesson you learned, and what do you want to impact to the viewers watching on how probably if someone is facing similar situation?
I think first of all, it is very important for people to remain focused. To, as they say, keep your eyes on the ball. Always, where are you going? And so, maintain that focus and don't lose it. It's very important. And then you have to. We are all human, and women are more human than are as human as it gets. And you need the support network around you to be able to, so reach out. I'm saying that don't stay, and bottle up whatever you're going through. Reach out to people that you think will be able to advise you, will be able to, help you pull through, and who will help you to succeed. um like you were talking about mentors, I had mentors who were pushing me, helping me, to achieve things that I thought I would never have achieved. And one of the reasons why I was able to, grow so fast, by the grace of the Almighty, is because the Almighty Himself, sent some people my way who supported me so much. Let me give you an example. When I was a very young academic, um, one of my mentors would always push me to publish, to write, papers, to go publish. And sometimes I wonder why he pushes me too much, because I mean, I have written a paper, I published. Why do I have to do another one, another one, another one? I felt it was too much. And but it got to a point where I had done so much hard work that it was time for promotion. It was not time for my promotion, rather, but I got promoted. I was given accelerated promotion. because I had already done double of the work that is needed to get even to the next one. So before the time for the promotion, I was given accelerated promotion for that. So for example, if I needed say 50 points in publications, I need 25 points in publications, I already had 50, at that very young stage of my academic career. And it's all because of, people who supported me. So I'm just saying that women should understand also and identify the kind of people who would support them. Not only women, everybody, you know, people who would support you and fall back on them at sometimes, in addition to, of course, keeping yourself focused in on the things you want to achieve. And of course, for me personally, another thing I've always held on to is, prayers and believing in the Almighty Allah. Yeah, that has been
Exactly.
the bedrock, for me.
It's really interesting hearing your story, and I hope people get inspired by your story and the path you have followed up to the present position you are. And
Mm,
bring to the last segment, which is a question we do ask every
mm,
speaker we have, is the focus on the future. How do we plan? What do you see? What is the future of law, environmental law, specifically in Africa? And what
well,
advice do you have for women in law and
mm.
policy?
Okay, environmental law in Africa is gaining ground. That is what I'm happy about. Before it used to be something that we hear somewhere, in other parts of the world. But for us in Africa now, environmental law is becoming very vital, very relevant. We are beginning to understand the influence of environmental factors on our, shared existence, and environmental law is beginning to be placed at the front burner of issues for discussion, and how we can promote social well-being through environmental laws. So I think that is the future for environmental law. But I want to emphasize something. You know, um, when you can't talk about environmental law without even talking about sustainable development law. And the only difference is that sustainable development helps us to, focus environment, or situate environment within the social and economic context in which it exists, which means environmental protection will be incomplete without proper economic development and without social justice. So that is the whole idea behind sustainable development, right? So if we're talking about environmental law for us in Africa, we should also be concerned generally about sustainable development, bringing environmental law to take care of our social, economic needs, political needs, cultural needs. And even though the world is, hyping sustainable development goals, SDGs, we are all interested in that. But we keep forgetting that as Africa, we have our own Agenda 2063, which is the Africa we want. The sustainable development goals are the the future we want, and is a United Nations framework. But we have an African framework called the Africa we want, Agenda 2063, which we should focus on. The reason why I'm talking about that is because the Africa We Want Agenda 2063 has taken into cognizance our cultural realities in Africa, our peculiar circumstances, and how we can grow sustainably within that context that suits our culture, our ways of life, without disrupting us the way the other things have done. So I think that's important when it comes to the future of environmental law in Africa. We should look at it from the view lens of sustainable development. And then for women who are, in the law and the academic or whatever, career you have chosen, um, I just want to say that you should be perseverance. You should persevere. You know, you should be resilient. You have to, because there will always be challenges. There will always be moments where you doubt yourself, where you begin to think, why am I here? Because most of the spaces, especially for us in this part of the world, has been taken over by men. Have always been, been dominated by men. So you find yourself in that situation where you have to, do what the man can do. I'm not asking you to do better or not, but this is what is expected of you in the society. Well, if you decide to go into career, well, you have to do just the way the man has done. But So do your best. Do what you can. Take care of your own personality, your own beliefs, your own culture, your own mental health. And remember always that we should not, as women, keep fighting for equality, gender equality. I'm not saying gender equality is bad. No, gender equality is good. But we should be more concerned about gender equity. And when I say gender equity, I keep saying this all over everywhere I get the chance to. I'm saying that we should get all the opportunities that men have, but that opportunity should also be conscious of our nature, of our natural creation as women. We are women, whether, so the fact that we're women, we should, take pride in being women and accept our femininity and live, in accordance with that femininity. So we should see, men as partners in progress, not competitors per se, because men cannot really compete with us. We are too much for men to compete with. We can do so much, do everything they do, and then, carry babies for 9 months, do every other thing that we do. We are multitaskers. So believe that as
Yeah,
a woman, you're a special being, and then, you know, and you can and you
yeah,
and be persevere in whatever you're doing. Don't lose hope. Don't give up. That's all I want to say.
yeah. I think you've captured all that is necessary and even more. And
Mm,
as you said, rightly said, the thing is keep your sight on the goalpost. Especially now we are in the era of a lot of distractions, social media, peer
mm,
pressure from all around. The thing is like how focused are you are. The noise to focus ratio,
mm,
how is it? So if you want to achieve anything, the focus on there should always be at its maximum. Thank you very
mm.
much, Prof, for having your time to talk to us this evening. And we thank all those that have been patient with us despite the network glitches and our late start, that have stayed with us up to
Very much.
the end of the questions we have prepared for the speaker this evening. And it's time we tilt ourselves onto the comment section to see what the members or those who have followers have been saying. The first one, this is someone that has been here since before we started. He's saying this is an amazing, highly informative channel I ever subscribe to. I'm here to learn, relearn, and unlearn from great minds. Thank you very
Mm,
much, Ali Balarabe. We kind of it's you kind of give us encouragement on the things we are doing that people are really appreciating. And this one from Abdullah Umar is this is a really strong, amazing. Bringing Professor Ali Muhammad here is a kind of privilege that every Northerner wants. But for this opportunity, we are here to learn moral lessons from her. Thank you. Thank you also. And that is also goodwill from Talahatu. You are inspiration to young people and the girl child, especially in the north, where the culture and political progress. Yeah. So this one from Yakubu Salis is saying, different from Karl Marx, at this juncture proves your in-depth understanding of how environment impacts law in society. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of advice for the people of law. I'm starting to
in
feel
his
jealous
grave
now.
now.
I'm starting to feel jealous now. Maybe I will switch to law as well. Very interesting discussion. So someone went up to look into your bio. Looking at your bio, you are a dedicated housewife, a mother, and also an exceptional professional. How did you manage all this together? I think we managed to answer this question as part of the answers. The question I asked. So sorry, I burst
Mm,
the bubble and I below.
no,
So
that's okay.
yeah, from YouTube, this one asked Professor how she felt about insecurity as she came from northern Nigeria and how she sees the problem and give us some advice on how to tackle it. Well, I don't know how complex this question is, so I'll leave it to the speaker.
Yes, it is really a comprehensive one, but I'll just attempt. Let me just say that, yes, coming from the Northeast, I have experienced the insecurity firsthand. In fact, there was a night in 20, I think it was 2012, that I spent, almost under the bed because of the gunshots and things like that that were flying all over near the house. And so I'll never forget that experience. So, as a lawyer who is also interested in development law, I will say this again, that one of the factors that have promoted or facilitated the not only the the coming, the coming out, the creation of, insecurity like the Boko Haram in North, but also has perpetuated it, is our poverty. Poverty is one of the things that, propel our younger ones, the young ones, the youth, to think that this is something that they can do, and and find meaning. Because so you see, the problem with youth unemployment is very, is a stark reality that we are battling with. And then apart from that, even the education that would have empowered people to think critically and see things for themselves, poverty does not allow it. You don't even get students to, yeah, children or young people to get the kind of quality education that will, help them to develop that kind of capacity. So at the end of the day, you give them any little incentive to go into social vices, it's easy for them to fall for it. So I think one of the things we have to, you know, tackle is the issue of, social development, youth empowerment, economic reforms that will help, to bring people together and empower them in various ways, especially for women. When women are well-to-do, usually the children are able to get the kind of upbringing, that will, when I say well-to-do, I'm not saying wealthy and rich, I'm saying when they have economic, kind of independence or economic stability, let me say stability, they are able to better raise children who are also, who are prone to get better education, who will not be prone to joining, all kinds of social vices. So I think that is one thing that we can look at, how to promote better education and to reduce poverty levels in the Northeast. I think it's one of the greatest problems that we have. And environmental factors, mind you, contribute to those problems.
Yeah, I think the environment is everything. So we hope the policymakers will be able to listen to the prof we have today in the studio and do the needful. That is another. This is another comment. Such a sharp mind, prof. It's really an honor to listen to someone who speaks with such clarity and insight. A lot of admirers from the audience. Thank you. Um,
Thank
this one is showing a lot of love signs. Very interesting session from Zuledenia Huza. And there is one long comment from Zul. One of the biggest setbacks facing Africa isn't, I don't know whether this is a question or a comment. So this seems to
you.
be a
Okay.
comment. It's about bad
Hmm.
laws of infrastructure. It's outdated
Hmm.
education. While the world is advancing with AI, climate innovation, digital entrepreneurship, and biotechnology, many African students are still stuck memorizing theories from the 1970s with little or no practical relevance. Think of students while graduating asking to draw vertebrae and grasshopper for the first 21st century. So the grievance is hard. Uh, you're also an
Yeah.
academician, so I don't know whether the speaker would like to comment or we should just proceed.
No, well, I can only say that I understand what he's saying and I agree, to a large
Yeah.
extent, that we need to go beyond what we are doing now in our schools. And that's why I keep talking about going, moving away from those sessions in class where you go and teach and leave, and, allowing students to participate beyond the classroom, going into real world and see how they can, solve real life problems. And the only way you can solve real life problems is to use the facilities available, in the present day to work with. So now you cannot solve a lot of, in going to solve many problems, you will need AI. But if you don't have the opportunity to go and apply that, you would not. So I agree with Zladeni that we have to revamp our educational sector beyond what it is
Yeah.
now. But I think the most important thing we need to state here is the issue of funding and political will to implement these things. The political will is lacking. I think it's very important we mention that.
And it's important that we have people of the law to persuade them to understand that.
Yes.
So this is a question probably you have already answered, Prof.
Yes.
After a successful implementation of this course from the scratch in the University of Abuja, thus other
Mm,
universities are course into the courses. So it's kind of
mm,
great admirer. It seems he's inspired. So thank you
mm,
for joining and you have answered this.
mm.
Um, would 2.1, I don't know, would like the professor to explain how she sees the future of education in Nigeria and what method will be used to solve the problems we are facing. We have partly answered this problem, but I don't know probably in terms of the solutions. Bumping up the
I yeah, I still
yeah,
think I should mention it again that
yeah,
it's good for us to embrace interdisciplinary education in in Nigeria.
yeah,
Students should learn to relate with different knowledge areas. I'm not saying you should be jack of all trades and master of none. No, that's not what I mean. Specialize, because we also need specialization. But there is wisdom, in allowing students to go beyond just what they learn in their major areas of study and going into other areas so that they can relate perfectly with every other thing,
yeah.
surrounding them. And then, like I said, we need like a kind of, like a reformulation of educational policies in this country, and we need
Mm,
to, fund education and encourage, people who are teaching to be able to do more. One of the things we have with education in this country sometimes is not that we don't have enough hands, but we don't have hands who are that committed, because the situation they find themselves in is such that they are struggling with, you know, how to feed their families and then how to go and teach students, because
mm,
teachers and are not properly taken care of. Facilities in the universities are so lacking, and so many things like that. I think that's what we should do.
exactly, yes. And I think a method I usually use to explain science, which is complex to people, is we are beings that are exposed to cocktail of activities. If you want to
Mm,
study and want to understand the human being, you have to look at it from multiple directions because there is always interaction. And it is the
yeah.
result of interactions that the human being exists. You cannot isolate a single item and you say that you will define human beings or like you want to define a problem with that.
Mm,
So there
yeah.
are a lot of admirers from Faiza, Yusuf Hamma, Aliyu Haladu. They are all kind of admirers. There is this long question which mostly we have answered it. The first part is a question we have answered during the podcast. And the second also important is that while you your success in life.
Mhm.
Another important question is what you become while achieving success in your life, because what we become is more important to know than the success itself, because that will be the guide. So he's asking of probably how you get refined in the process. I don't know, probably something like that.
Okay. So the first question was about how I navigated, I think, the challenges. I talked about them a few times, but
Yeah.
I can repeat, that I managed to, with the help of the Almighty, I'm a strong believer that I was able to stay focused. And apart from that focus that I was able to stay on, I had people, around me that were my support system. I would never have achieved so much without them. And I think that's a very important one. And I'm a very prayerful person. It's not easy, but and then practically sometimes I do like a priority list. If I have items A, B, C, D to do, and I'll do a priority list. Which one do I really think is so important at this point? And then so I create it. Though this should be the first on my list. One of the things I do is I wake up, or not I wake up every day. Most time before I go to bed at night, I write out the things I'm going to do the next day. I write them down. I don't think about them in my head. I have to write them down, because writing helps me to stay focused. And then as I'm achieving N1, I'm canceling. So the one, if I get item A done, I cancel it. I get item B done, I cancel. If I don't, I move it to the next day. So those are some of the coping mechanisms that I have used. Even though, like I keep saying, I feel like sometimes I have not given the attention that some aspects of my life deserve enough. Like, sometimes I'll be in this study, and and I'm staying for hours, and my children don't cannot come in. I said, don't come in. I'm busy. You're distracting me. And then I feel guilty that I have abandoned my children for hours. Yeah, but it's one of those things. They learn also from my experience. And then another
Mm.
thing I wanted to say was what was it again? Well, if I remember, okay, yeah, the second question he asked about what I was able to achieve. So what I have achieved is that I have, first of all, grown from, I don't like saying this because you're asking me to like blow my trumpet, and it's not really nice. It's not nice to blow my trumpet, but I know that I have grown from a young girl, from normal background, humble background, and then I have been able to, become a lawyer, the first lawyer in my family, so far. And then after I became a lawyer, I became the first graduate of the Harvard Global Development Practice Program. Until today, it's there on the record. I'm the first person who graduated. There were others who were studying with me, but I happened to be the one to beat everybody to it and graduate first. That was what happened. Uh-huh. And then I did not only graduate at Harvard. I graduated with two very um, beautiful achievements, awards. The first award is the award of academic achievement award. That's what it's called, academic achievement award. So what that means is that um, for out of a GP of 4.0, I had close to 3.9, you know, GP. That was my GP. So that was why I had the Academic Achievement Award. Then the second award was is I told you that in that program there's a field component to it where you go to identify real world challenges and then you solve it. Yeah, and then you create an action plan for solving that problem. So and I did that, and they felt that my project at that time was the best among those some that graduated in the sustainability program, and so they gave me that award. Not only that, I was able to you know become um, a professor at a good age. I'm not saying I'm young, but I know that generally I'm okay for that age. So I think I became a professor of law, and a professor of law means you're at the highest, at the peak of your career. And I was able to achieve that, before I grew old, too old to continue. So which means I still have time to contribute a lot to society, to knowledge, and to everything, because I'm still, age is on my side to, to be able to work on that. I still have a long time too. So I think I consider those humble, achievements, very important. And I'm always grateful to the Almighty who has made it all possible, and the people who have supported me in the journey so far. It's not my
Yeah,
making.
Prof is really humble and doesn't like to speak a lot, but I think we have get the picture, and we hope that listeners will emulate. And one most important thing that he highlighted is the fact that little things you do account to the greatest of the things you achieve in life. And one of the best things is how organized you are. If you can see, there's a little aspect of writing everything she wants to achieve the next day that propelled her into this greatness. And if you take this formula, implement it in your life with the years to come, then what you will see in your life will be tremendous. I think this is one very important question to me. What future do you
Mm.
see in non-compliance of socials towards the implementation of laws that puts the society in a good shape? Non-compliance of law, I think, is a kind of household name.
Yes, I'm wondering what the social, what the word socials meant there. Mm. Non-compliance of laws. So
Yeah, I think
non-compliance of law, not compliance with laws. I think that's what he's trying to say. Yakubu, that's
probably
his
I
name.
think so.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
talking about non-compliance with laws. So of course, non-compliance with laws is a problem, and I feel that there should always be stronger enforcement mechanisms. So when I say stronger enforcement mechanisms, I'll give you an example. Like in some of our laws, we see that a person who has committed an offense or who has, committed a social infraction would be asked to pay a fine of, say, 50,000 naira or even 200 naira sometimes or 500 naira. And these things are still existing. So why would that person comply with any law when I can go and just give the 50 naira or 100 naira or 2,000 naira or even a million naira, for God's sake, and move on? So I think
yeah,
so that's why I'm saying we need stronger, enforcement mechanisms to be put in place. We need our laws, many of them, to be reviewed in the first place, because some even laws that are existing, they are not implementable at all. You can't even implement some laws the way they are, because they are not, in tune with our realities. So why don't we go and review these laws, and make them amenable to our situations so that we can implement them properly. Like for me, example, anytime I somebody asks me which law you think should we should do away with, I always think about one section of the Constitution that prevents people from, yeah, like I think it's section 6 of the Constitution, under section 6 of section 6C. I always remember the section because I talk to it about it a lot with my students. And I tell them that, and you know what the Constitution has done for us, because I want the students to remember that part. So I say, you know what this Constitution has done to us? It has given us something with one hand, and I'll do like this with my hand so that they remember. And then taking it away with the other hand, and I'll do this. So they remember I said giving with one hand and taking away with the other. And then I'll explain to them that the Constitution provided under Chapter 2 that every citizen should, enjoy education, quality education, and that the government should provide, adequate health care, provide economic well-being, and, protect the environment, every other thing under Chapter 2. And then even the Constitution itself, provides that that provision is mandatory, which means the government must, or whoever is responsible must provide it. But the same Constitution went to Section 6 and said, no, that provision, you cannot go and enforce it before the court. So who is the hope of the common man? What do we do? So you can't go and hold anybody accountable for failure to provide education, or for failure to fund healthcare, or for failure to protect the environment, because the Constitution itself has said no court should has the power to ever entertain any matter that would call into question the power, the failure of anybody to perform that. I don't want to go into legalities too much here, but that's not the point I'm making. Implementing laws, we will have to go back to the drawing board and work on the laws we already have, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, I think we really need that, especially when the non-compliance is high. So the law is making people to be non-compliant. That's really
Yes.
frightfully hard. We hope there will be a crosstalk between researchers in the field of law and policymakers, and hopefully, laws will be enacted that will suit our environment, our own population, our community, our beliefs, and our cultural
Yeah.
and religious beliefs. The rest of the comments are all kind of showing we love Professor Hammer. What an insightful talk. Thank you, Professor. And that is one thing I would like to highlight. That is a remarkable number of female listeners today in today's podcast and have been
Oh.
commenting. And it's yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
This Nadia, her energy, how she speaks is unmatched. Her choice of words is 100. A lot of admirers. I
Mhm.
hope you will become like her,
Oh,
more than
you
her.
want me to
We
blush?
need
Eh? I don't make me
her.
blush.
Yeah, we will need more of her and more of people that can act like her, because that is what our society needs, and that is what will make our society stand out in the face of all challenges. So at this point, I think we have come to the end of our this month's podcast. On behalf, we would like to appreciate and thank our professor, who is really busy but spent her time to speak to us this evening. We hope it's transparent to listeners that have spent their time and listened to us from the beginning, despite the glitches, despite our late start, up to the end. And I would like to remind people that will view this that this podcast will be available all the time on demand on our YouTube channel, and on Facebook. It will be available for a month, and we'll share it also on our LinkedIn channel on BRTC. Remember to follow Science Communication Hub Nigeria and watch out for more. On behalf of those that have worked hard to bring this episode, I say goodbye and thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.